All right. Good evening. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. Okay, since I haven't done one of these the previous 2 weeks, there's plenty of stories to get to. So um, I guess we'll just go ahead and get into it here. A lot of Disney Marvel related stuff, but we'll start off talking about the Joker, which has been a tremendous failure at the box office. So bad, in fact, Warner Brothers may be in trouble. This is from Forbes. Joker 2 flop in 2024 threatens worst case future for DC Studios. Warner Brothers Discovery and DC Studios' Joker Folie à Deux came in below the widely projected 121 million worldwide box office as I forecast for yesterday. Expected to be among the year's biggest blockbusters, does the film's status as 2024's biggest flop threaten a worst case future for the rebooted DC cinematic universe? The 119 million worldwide opening weekend for Joker Folie à Deux, combined with terrible audience scores and equally bad critical reviews, means it will probably suffer above average weekly declines. So don't expect the sub 50 drops other successful tent poles like Deadpool and Wolverine and Inside Out 2 have enjoyed this year. Yeah, apparently it dropped so much that was it Terrifier 3, I guess, actually beat it this weekend at the box office. At this point, signs point toward a final cumulative in the 250 to 275 million dollar range, depending a lot on weekday numbers. China and Japan's contributions when the film opens in those markets, and exactly how bad the second weekend drop is. I modeled based on a modest 60% decline, but if the bottom falls out at 70%, for example, then all bets are off, and we probably are looking at right around a $200 million finish, which is what the movie's budget was, I believe, roughly. And of course, a movie needs to make, I don't know, I've heard different versions, but anywhere from like double to triple, the cost of production in order to turn a profit. So this thing is going to lose hundreds of millions probably. As bad as this already looks at face value, the result is worse when compared against Joker Folie à Deux's enormous budget. Summer tentpole superhero team-up blockbusters typically have equal or lower budgets than this film's pre-deductions $200 million bill, and that's before marketing, although the studio avoided equivalent summer tentpole promotional costs for better or worse. A significant portion of Joker Folie à Deux's budget, approximately 52 million according to the Hollywood Reporter, went to Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix's, and Lady Gaga's salaries alone, albeit to different degrees, as Gaga reportedly earned 12 million while Phoenix and Phillips split the rest at 20 million each. Compared against the roughly $4 to $5 million Phoenix received for Joker back in 2019, the pay raises for the top three names explains a lot of inflation from the first film's $70 million budget to the sequel's nearly 200 million. The significance of Joker Folie à Deux's financial pain is separate from its artistic merit and reception, obviously, and even the fact it was widely panned by critics and audiences alike is likewise still not an objective measure of its value or merit as a film. But it's not insignificant when every measurement aligns to tell us a film is widely deemed an expensive swing and a miss. The value in studios funding artistic swings and misses is another discussion, of course, and there's value in discussing it apart from the nuances and particulars we debate over anything else about the films. But for DC Studios and Warner Brothers Discovery right now, these are characters, source material, and projects that cost a lot of money to bring to the big screen. It's an investment within a profit driven corporate entity competing for audience attention and dollars against similar projects. That might sound cynical, but I don't actually mean it that way. It's simply the reality of cinema, and it's always been the reality, however much we often pretend towards some rose colored, idealized Hollywood past. And however impersonal and cold that math sounds, remember that it represents ultimately the artistic assessments, opinions, discussions, and recommendations among worldwide professional critics of cinema and a mainstream global public. It would be unfair to disregard numbers legitimately reflecting widespread public opinion and react to cinematic art created exactly for those audiences and to elicit their reactions. Certain no, Certainly nobody was insisting that the reviews, audience reactions, box office, and awards were irrelevant with regard to the first Joker film, right? Negative reviews and bad box office don't take away from the value of Joker Folie à Deux for anybody else. Measurements of it are relevant to understanding and discussing not only artistic value, but also financial merits of investing in special films. Boy, this guy's taken a long time to make his point, isn't he? Especially especially since Joker Folie à Deux's reception could play a role in influencing audience reception of forthcoming DC projects and how the studio might react if they anticipate audience backlash. Without diving too deeply into the past, Warner Brothers isn't exactly a stranger to reactive studio leadership abruptly changing course when facing box office adversity. The results of that are precisely why Warner is now starting from scratch next year with writer director James Gunn's Superman. Since Aquaman swam to 1.1 billion in 2018, 8 of the 9 DCEU superhero movies have failed to reach even 400 million, with half of them taking less than 200 million in total worldwide box office, and 2 others failing to reach 300 million. The only bright spots for DC on the big screen for the past 6 years have been Joker in 2019 and Batman in 2022. Uh, yeah, but what about? I mean, you just talked about Aquaman. What about that? That made over a billion. I'm not rubbing salt in the wound. I'm trying to apply some light and some blunt diagnoses to determine what it tells us about the risk of reopening the same old wounds again compared to healing and moving on. The DCU has the potential for both, depending very much on how Warner Brothers Discovery and DC Studios leadership react or don't react to Joker Folie à Deux's failed launch. Quality is always a factor, but it's also the hardest to measure and most subjective to determine. So while it's true that studios must commit to taking material seriously, making sure everyone involved delivers the best film possible, it's also true that everyone involved in Joker Folie à Deux seems pretty certain they did those things and they felt they succeeded. Huh. One recurring lesson I've seen across the past 20 years is that audiences are less interested in deconstruction of superhero cinema outside of effectively established and recognizable popular iterations first. Because DC did more of the former in their films, it's a lesson most visible in audience reception of DC movies. Look at the well received and financially successful DC films over the past 20 years. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Joker, The Batman. Those films pretty much delivered, to varying degrees, the expected and recognized versions of superheroes conforming mostly to audience preferences for those characters and or superheroes in general. I don't know about Man of Steel for that one. I would question that, but whatever. So the lesson, make good movies, is really pointless beyond that. Even claiming listen to what people prefer suggests pandering and not taking risks, which isn't the right lesson either. But what is true and what is a good lesson is to understand the reasons audiences rejected the deconstructions, the reason they felt uninterested or cheated. And that's part of the larger lesson at the heart of all this, knowing your audience, knowing not only what they prefer and expect, but also why they do, and knowing the characters and stories well enough to be able to deliver what audiences prefer and expect in interesting ways that still challenge the audience and eventually subvert their expectations because you've earned it. If you prove to audiences that you understand the characters and understand why the characters matter to them, you earn their permission to deconstruct the characters. And like it or not, you need viewer permission if you want audience buy-in. Okay, I understand that. I think he's actually got a good point there. You also need to be sure you established which version you're deconstructing, because when the approach goes an extra layer deep by deconstructing an incarnation, incarnation that is itself a deconstructed iteration of the character, you're asking audiences to take two big leaps of faith with you beyond even the built-in leaps of faith you're asking when you tell fantasy sci-fi myths in the first place. I love deconstruction. Mainstream audiences do too. They just want to see it within the framework of something larger to care about on the front end, particularly through a more recognizable version that they care about to begin with, or the deconstruction is pointless. Whether it's done across several films, the way Marvel set up in their shared universe before deconstructing it, or within a single but effective story, such as Zack Snyder's Justice League did for Cyborg, or Barry Allen's arc in The Flash, it usually needs to happen in some semblance of that format when you're making movies about existing pop culture icons. Marvel did it on the front end and largely avoided the problem of audience backlash, but Warner's DCU moved quickly into deconstructive territory, rooted in incarnations of certain characters that were already edge cases leaning towards deconstruction. Yeah, I agree completely. That's what I've always felt is you know, it's like one movie in and you're already killing Superman. I mean, come on, or two movies in. Anyone's personal opinion and preferences regarding the quality and value of that is beside the point at this level of the discussion. It created a 2 point barrier for audiences, and while it only initially slowed mainstream buy in, it didn't take long to turn audiences off entirely. Financially, Man of Steel was a success at 668 million despite slightly underperforming. Slightly. I mean, they were looking at that to make a billion. Come on. Batman vs Superman did blockbuster business with 874 million, but it underperformed as well and obviously quickly lost audience interest. Then Suicide Squad did well to the tune of 749 million and Wonder Woman was a huge hit that grossed 823 million. I mean, that right there, Wonder Woman made 823 million. And then a movie with Batman and Superman in it was only able to make 874 million. A movie with Batman and Superman in it should make a billion and a half, if it was good. Justice League failed at 661 million, but Aquaman rebounded as the biggest hit of the DCU with 1.1 billion. Wonder Woman and Aquaman were widely accepted by audiences and critics alike, but the rest of those films, despite being generally financially successful, had mixed reviews and mostly so-so audience scores. A new DC superhero shared world kicked off with the biggest and most popular versions of DC heroes at a time when the MCU and the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy put superhero cinema at the top of the charts was always going to attract initial attention from audiences. But all the signs of trouble were clear, and studio executive leadership's hands on approach not only didn't help, it resulted in the franchise killing Justice League fiasco. I've already recounted the subsequent 9 film collapse. Yeah. So I won't repeat that. But what it reflected was audiences having decided the DCU wasn't what they wanted and that they were mostly done giving it more attention or money. Now, look closely at which of those early films did best and which underperformed. It's the films that were generally what audiences expected and prefer in foundational superhero franchises. Man of Steel, mostly. I dispute that, but whatever. Suicide Squad, theatrically, it delivered most of what the trailer reflected. Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Before them, it was the Dark Knight trilogy and its moody faux realism approach that reflected what's always been most popular about Batman, the notion that he's got no powers, he's just someone with resources who trained and wants to save his city. Batman Begins set up the Batman audiences love best and leaned into that. Then in The Dark Knight, the series deconstructed Batman's assumptions right in front of him. And then in The Dark Knight Rises, they tore it all down and showed us its strengths and weaknesses before rebuilding it into something stronger in the end. But the new DC EU only set up the idealized popular heroes in a few instances while starting off with deconstruction when it came to some of the biggest and most important foundational characters in films. The deconstructive elements in Man of Steel and then the more pronounced deconstruction in Batman vs. Superman and Justice League seem to have been a case of too much too soon for mainstream audiences. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that completely. The studio also felt that audiences knew these characters well enough not to need establishing them more popularly and positively, that deconstruction was possible right out of the gate, which it is, and I liked and loved most of the early DCEU films, but being possible and liked by a portion of the audience willing to bring their own awareness and preferences of the characters to the table is different from whether it's a good idea that will be successful and embraced by the mainstream. From there, those underlying disconnects from the audience mixed with soft critical reception and the unfortunate comparison to Marvel's well received sequels and new franchises. The comparison became all the more relevant at this particular point in time because Marvel's success was precisely because they were willing to tell stories that mixed the overwhelmingly popular superhero origin template with deconstructive elements arising later within the later connected story elements. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they did basically the dystopian uh, alternate timeline story, but they did it right out of the gate. If Batman versus Superman had been I don't know, like the seventh movie, where kind of like with Flashpoint, when Barry goes back and he changes history and changes the timeline. If there had been something like that, something altered the timeline, and then that's why Superman and Batman are at odds, that would have worked a lot better. I always remember right out of coming out of, because originally, the Flash movie was going to be an origin story, is what they originally said. But then after Justice League came out, then they pivoted and they said, well, I think what maybe we'll do is we'll do the Flashpoint story. We'll do Flashpoint. And I remember laughing at that and thinking, okay, well, the Flashpoint story is where Barry alters history, and now you've got this sort of dark dystopian version of the DCU where the heroes are all enemies and at odds and fighting each other, and killing people. And I was like, I mean, you already did that. You did that in Batman versus Superman already. Okay. After several years of the same sort of stories, mostly signaling a lack of appreciation for what the viewers wanted, it seems audiences gave up giving DC a chance, with two exceptions. When a new Joker origin of film appeared on the audiences saw all of the signs that it was a sort of Joker we know the public prefers. Presented in the film, the sort of film audiences tend to favor for Batman and Batman adjacent movies, namely what Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy did, and what Joker did, and what the Batman did, and the Penguin is currently doing. Joker Folie à Deux suffered because of early mixed to negative reactions at festival, from marketing that hid its musical nature, while word of it being a musical spread anyway, thus creating buzz that the studio was hiding the musical nature because they feared audiences wouldn't like it. And mild spoilers, it winds up making many feel like they were cheated or that the film retroactively makes both films pointless. I guess they're talking about that ending. It shouldn't be hard to look at the films that succeeded, the ones that failed, and learn the right lessons. The only question now is, will audiences show up? But that's the thing. Hollywood never learns the right lessons from their failures. They basically, when they fail, they basically look at the lesson, the failure, and they interpret it. The lesson they take from it is they basically interpret it in a way that just kind of reinforces their own biases and their own views. Uh, My fear is that we are in a mirror of the same moment Warner Brothers faced in 2013 with a new Superman movie launching a new shared universe. A solo Batman franchise that's a rare bright spot after many rocky years for DC on film, changes in studio leadership, and a rising popular Marvel, defining audience expectations for the genre going forward. The final mirroring factor to consider is that we also just had a return of the 1990s cinematic Batman in a film that was widely derided and failed at the box office, akin to Batman and Robin killing off the franchise in the 1990s. There's a loud warning in all of this, and Batman is sort of the canary in the coal mine. It's not that Batman is a tainted brand, it's that the DC brand has become so tainted that with the failure of The Flash last year and Joker Folie à Deux this year for the first time since the 1990s, Batman isn't able to draw built-in audience trust and interest. Joker's own box office draw has been firmly established since 1989, with even Jared Leto's oft criticized Joker enjoying great financial success in his one film appearance. Was it really great financial success? I don't know about that. But I totally agree. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said that the DC brand, the entire DC brand is just so tainted now. It's just so poisoned that you're gonna have to overcome a lot of skepticism and a lot of hesitance on the part of the audience because they don't trust the filmmakers anymore. Oh, and hello, Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU, and Doctor Who. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for stopping by. Okay. Okay. So Joker's own box office, or I already read that. Is the Batman brand no longer safe? Will audience distrust of the DC brand carry over in coming years to even otherwise good or great Batman projects? Like this Bane Deathstroke team up movie. I mean, that right there, it's like, you know, how about a Flash Green Lantern team up movie or Green Arrow Green Lantern team up movie for that matter? But no, no, we're getting a Bane Deathstroke movie. If the Joker's sequel to $1 billion origin story can't generate enough interest and trust to at least have a decent opening weekend, should we be concerned about the future of Batman movies solo or in the DCU? I'd like to think audiences will reward the Batman Part 2 with another huge box office cumulative, and that's as long as Warner Brothers Discovery and DC Studios don't meddle or cancel it. The Matt Reeves Batman world could be immune to the other pressures working against DC's shared world stuff. Perhaps the DCU's upcoming new Batman and Robin movie has something to worry about, but surely not the established solo Batman. Sadly, the fact is, I also thought Joker's success and his proximity to Batman, especially as a grounded and gritty continuation, was a safe bet. But audiences have told us loud and clear there are no safe bets anymore. But that's it. It's grounded and gritty. And then you turn it into a musical. You know, I mean, the two kind of clash. Those two styles kind of go against each other. It's like, oh, this is a darker, more realistic take, but it's a darker, grounded, gritty, more realistic take where the characters break into song every few minutes, and music plays. It's but what he's talking about here about is the Matt Reeves Batman going to be immune to that. The Penguin's doing really well, despite my expectations. I think I talked about that in my last stream I did. I was dead wrong on that thing because I was mocking that project for what 2 years, probably at least over a year, and there it is, and it's a big hit. So I don't know. What do I know? Okay, enough of that. All right, so I'll stick with DC related stuff here for the next couple of stories. And actually, speaking of the Pattinson Batman, let me bring this up here. And this is from epicstream.com. Warner Brothers reportedly pushing for Robert Pattinson to become the DCU's Batman. A recent report suggested that Warner Brothers is pushing for Robert Pattinson's Batman to become the DCU's main Caped Crusader. One of the casting news in the DCU that fans have been looking forward to hearing, boy, that's poorly written, is which actor DC Studios will cast to play the franchise's version of Batman, who is expected to debut in the Brave and the Bold movie. Which, okay. So far, DC Studios remains mum on any casting updates regarding the DCU's Batman, but the project remains in the works with the Flash director Andy Muschietti attached to helm. Is he still doing that? I thought that he had like moved on from that or been dismissed or something a while back. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. According to a recent scoop from insider Jeff Snyder, we heard that Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav is pushing for Batman to be introduced in the DCU sooner rather than later. Yeah, I'll bet he is. He wants the Batman movie to happen soon in order for the DCU to compete strongly against the MCU. One of the ideas that they're considering is to have Pattinson become the DCU's main Batman over the release of the sequel, and the Batman universe will be integrated into the new franchise. So far, Warner Brothers and DC Studios have not confirmed the claims made in the report, so take this with a grain of salt. Well, I mean, I'm no expert on these matters, but originally this was supposed to be kind of a separate thing. And Matt Reeves was given basically the reins of the Batman franchise before James Gunn took over. And I would imagine that Reeves would have the expectation that he's going to be the one in control of the franchise and the character, or at least this version of it. And if this character joins the DCU, well, then that would mean Gunn ultimately is really the one in charge and not Reeves. And I can't imagine that Reeves would like that. I mean, I understand from a business standpoint why he would want that, but they've already alienated. There was that whole dust up where uh, Zaslav alienated a lot of directors, I think, by having some stuff go directly to streaming back during the pandemic. And in particular, Nolan really didn't like that, and he left. He quit Warner Brothers, he'd had a good relationship with them for years. And if they're gonna basically take control of Batman away from Reeves after they agreed to give it to him, then they risk alienating another good director who's done fairly well for them so far. I wasn't thrilled with the Batman, but it was okay. There were some things I liked. If uh, if Pattinson ends up becoming the DCU's main Batman, it might pose some creative issues for both franchises, since his version of the Caped Crusader was always planned to be standalone and not part of a larger universe. We are also seeing signs that the DCU is doubling down on the superhero component of the universe with strong fantastical sci-fi elements, and its tone would be a contrast to the Batman franchise's grounded take. For now, let's wait and see whether this idea ends up happening or DC Studios will simply have its own version of Batman and cast another actor to play the iconic role. Yeah, I would imagine that's what they'll wind up doing. Besides, the Brave and the Bold, it's supposed to be Batman with Robin, right? And it's supposed to be Damian Wayne, who is Batman's son. You know, I mean, how would that work? I don't know. I just don't see it happening personally. I'm sure Zaslav wants it, but I'm sure that Reeves will not. Be interesting to see how it plays out. Okay, so I got one more DC story, then we're going to move over to Marvel here. Speaking of adding fantastic sci-fi elements. So I think in the last stream I talked about how they were looking at Kyle Chandler to play Hal Jordan in this Green Lantern show. And now it looks like they have found their John Stewart. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Lanterns finds its John Stewart with Aaron Pierre. Aaron Pierre, the star of Netflix's Rebel Ridge, has nabbed the plum part of Green Lantern John Stewart at DC Studios and HBO's much ballyhooed series Lanterns. The casting caps one of the more scrutinized actor searches in some time. Not only is the show the first major TV endeavor from DC studio heads James Gunn and Peter Safran, but the role of Stewart carries much significance as the fan favorite comic book character was one of DC's first black superheroes. The intense casting process came down to Pierre and Stephen James, who is on the festival circuit with the drama The Piano Lesson, who starred and who starred in the 2016 Jesse Owens biopic Race. Both participated in screen tests, with the actor squaring off against the already cast Kyle Chandler on Thursday and Friday. Each actor had their boosters, but the final decision was made Tuesday. Pierre definitely brings heat to the show, as the actor has, over the course of a few months, gone to the top of casting lists. His leading turn in Jeremy Saulnier's Rebel Ridge debuted on Netflix on September 6th and was the #1 title worldwide on Netflix for 3 weeks in a row. I don't know anything about this show, Rebel Ridge. Does anyone know what it's about? If you do, can you tell me in the comments? Because I have no idea. The actor already has had a brush with the comic book realm. He once was cast opposite Mahershala Ali in Marvel Studios' Blade. But the version of the long-delayed movie morphed, and he will not be involved going forward. He also appeared in M. Night Shyamalan's Old, an adaptation of a graphic novel. Yeah, that Blade movie, man, what a mess. Lanterns is said to have a gritty, true detective vibe, which is just what you want in a Green Lantern story. I mean, am I right? Good God. And follows Hal Jordan, a legend amongst the space police force known as the Green Lanterns, as he reluctantly mentors Stewart, a younger Green Lantern. The two intergalactic cops get drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. Which, again, that's just what you want in a Green Lantern story, investigating a murder in Nebraska or what. I mean, what the hell? Ay, 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 ay. Chandler, a TV veteran thanks to acclaimed turns in Friday Night Lights and Bloodline, is set to star as Jordan. James Hawes, an established TV helmer who most recently directed a string of episodes of the Gary Oldman spy series Slow Horses, has been tapped to helm the first 2 episodes of the sci-fi cop series. Lanterns has a straight-to-series order at HBO and comes from high pedigree creators. Chris Mundy of Ozark, Damon Lindelof, God damn it, and Eisner Award-winning comic book writer Tom King are executive producing and writing, with Monday show running what is planned as an 8-episode season. Hawes also joins the force as an exec producer. And I think I said last time I talked about this show that, yeah, this thing's going to be crap. I'm just going to predict it. Hawes also joins I already read this. So writer Dennis O'Neil and artist Neil Adams introduced Stewart in 1971's Green Lantern number 87, 12 years after Hal Jordan and the larger Green Lantern Corps mythos arrived on the scene. Pierre was recently seen leading the Nat Geo series Genius, MLKX, portraying civil rights leader Malcolm X, Garth Davis's 2023 sci-fi drama Foe, alongside Paul Mescal and Saoirse Ronan, Clement Virgo's brother, and Barry Jenkins's award-winning limited series The Underground Railroad. In December, Pierre takes on the titular role of Mufasa in Barry Jenkins's CGI animated Lion King prequel for Disney. Oh man. Okay, so like I say, I haven't seen the show, so I don't know, much about the guy. Uh, he'll probably be fine. I mean, I don't think, just looking at him, I mean, he's not what I really imagine. He doesn't quite fit like the comic book version of the character, in my opinion. But it's obvious they're not really going for that anyway. It's obvious they're going for a kind of a true detective by way of Men in Black, where you've got the older white guy in this sort of sci-fi based law enforcement agency who's showing the ropes to the black rookie, that kind of thing. I mean, he'll probably be fine. And he'll be, the wisecracking, cocky, guy with the swagger and all that, I'm sure. Which, like I say, isn't the comic book version, but there's actually been 2 distinct versions of the comic book character anyway, because when he was introduced in the comics, the trend at the time was characters like Luke Cage and like Black Lightning, where black heroes they were sort of characterized or cast as for lack of a better word, angry young men. Oh, hey, Adega. Hello, sir. Good to see you again. Thank you for stopping by, as always. I hope you're doing well. Lord knows that enough's going wrong in the world right now. But so when he was originally introduced, the trend was, all the young black heroes being they were guys from the ghetto, and they were sort of real angry at the society and all that. And Jon Stewart was consciously kind of a cast against type. They specifically didn't want him to be that. And so originally Jon Stewart was he was an architect. He was college educated. He had like a good job. He wasn't, living in the ghetto and all that. And he was, for the most part, a fairly level-headed guy, um, with a couple of notable exceptions. Particularly in the Cosmic Odyssey series, where he sort of got kind of arrogant and cocky and inadvertently kind of screwed up and allowed a planet to be destroyed. That's a whole other thing, though. But then when they did the Justice League cartoon I assume this was in order to maybe create conflict on the team or something like that, but they sort of changed his background and his personality and made him an ex-Marine and made him more of, basically a hard ass. And like I say, I think they did that to promote conflict among the characters. And because the cartoon was so popular, that kind of seeped into the comics. And so since the early 2000s or mid 2000s, that's kind of how he's been characterized. But again, this is going to be, I think, even something else again. I say with the creative people attached, with Lindelof and Tom King involved, I expect this to be trash. And like I say, I mean, okay, we're doing a Green Lantern show. Okay, let's make it a grounded, gritty detective show where they're investigating a murder in the American heartland. Okay, great. So it's like, hey, let's do Green Lantern, but let's make it like Breaking Bad or something. Whatever. Dumb idea. Okay. Time to move on here. What time am I at? Oh wow, I'm at 38 minutes already. Well, that first article was pretty long. Okay, some Marvel stuff. And this is from geektyrant.com. Captain America Brave New World test screening reactions have not been good. Oof, movie sounds awful. Marvel Studios has held a couple of test screenings for Captain America Brave New World. And according to insiders, the movie did not go over well with test audiences. And of course, this is bearing in mind that they did this after reshoots, because they showed it to test audiences back, I think it was it last year? Last year was the strike, right? Yeah. So I think they showed the movie to audiences after I think it was right after the strikes last year. So like around, I think, August, September of last year. And those test screenings were bad, which is what necessitated the remakes or the reshoots, which, depending on which versions you hear, it's like they almost reshot the whole damn movie. So it's hard to see how this movie's going to make money considering how much they spent on it. The negative responses from the very first test screenings for the movie prompted Marvel Studios to order extensive reshoots. Those reshoots took place over 4 months. Yeah, I mean, over 4 months. I mean, that's more than just a few reshoots. That's nearly reshooting the whole darn thing. With the studio hiring Moon Knight writer Matthew Orton to write some new scenes for the movie. Oh, great. But in this new round of test screenings, which took place last week, it doesn't seem like things have gotten any better. 2 screenings were reportedly held, with attendees split into groups with either a green or red bracelet. An initial report from World of Real claimed that 2 cuts of the film were shown, but each screening could also have been for 2 different demographics. Interesting. Regardless, the movie is described as inessential and flat. Hollywood Insider, I believe that's My Time to Shine Hello, who's like someone on Twitter who's broken some scoops, has also heard from some people who attended the screening. Quote, just heard back from like 3 people who went to see Captain America Brave New World test screenings and woof, movie sounds awful, unquote. Another report said, quote, Marvel held multiple test screenings of different cuts for the film in the past month. The main criticism is the use of the leader character in both. He's either too much or too little. One cut seemed to have Amadeus Cho set up in it for future projects. Consistent high marks for Sam and President Ross. Okay, so audiences like uh, the Falcon, or well, Sam Wilson as Captain America, and they like Harrison Ford as President Ross. I've actually been looking forward to watching this movie, so it would be a bummer if Marvel ended up dropping the ball with it and delivering another mediocre Marvel movie. In the film, quote, after meeting with newly elected U.S. President Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford in his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut, Sam finds himself in the middle of an international incident. He must discover the reason behind a nefarious global plot before the true mastermind has the entire world seeing red. Seeing red, get it? Red Hulk. When previously talking about the film, Kevin Feige says he's looking to capture the same magic that they delivered in Captain America Winter Soldier by leaning into the whole political thriller aspect of the story. Okay, so I guess that's it. All right. And look, like I said, I think when that teaser came out, that because in the teaser, Isaac, what's his name? The black man who was the original test subject for the super soldier serum. He tries to assassinate Ross, and I said at that time, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is it's going to turn out that he's being mind controlled by the leader to try and kill Ross, and this will actually turn out to be some kind of a plot with Ross and the leader working together. They set that whole thing up themselves. Ross knew about it, was playing along in order to scare the public or trick the public into going along with some agenda that Ross is going to have, whatever. I don't know. Um, but, we'll see. Okay. Dega says, shocked. Just look at the shock on my face. Yeah. Shocked to find there's gambling going on in here. Here you're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, and actually, I got another one from Geek Tyrant here. So let me bring that up. Whew. All right. Again from Geek Tyrant. Avengers Doomsday will reportedly see Wanda Maximoff and Doctor Doom as lovers. An interesting report has surfaced regarding Marvel's Avengers Doomsday as Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff, might be Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom's lover in the story. This news comes from the Hollywood scooper My Time to Shine Hello on X, who suggested that Olsen's Wanda might have a bigger impact in Avengers Doomsday. The scooper then mentioned that, quote, Wanda will be a main player in both Avengers films and that she will share a lot of screen time with RDJ's Doom. And then in parentheses, it says, as his lover, question mark. This would make for a really strange and interesting direction for these characters. This is just a big rumor for now, but one that is sure to get a lot of fans talking. It's also pointed out that in the comics Avengers, the Children's Crusade, Doctor Doom and Wanda become allies in the quest to acquire power. There's another report from Comic Basics that refutes this claim, though, saying that a romantic relationship between Doctor Doom and Wanda is highly unlikely because Doom is not a part of the main timeline of the MCU. Then there's the fact that Wanda is in love with Vision, but all of that can be explained away with a different variant of Wanda from another corner of the multiverse. Yeah, I mean, to me, this kind of sounds like just like fan shipping type stuff. Someone mentioned somewhere that she's going to be in the movie a lot, and then someone was like, "Oh, are they going to be a couple?" So I don't know. I don't put a lot of stake in that. And honestly, it seems like I've heard so many contradictory stories about whether or not Elizabeth Olsen is even coming back, because it seems like didn't she say she was pretty much done or wasn't coming back? But I guess we all thought Downey Jr. wasn't going to come back, not as Doom at least. So who knows? Okay, and speaking of Avengers Doomsday, so this next story is from superhero, or no, it's from MSNBC. No, Superhero Hype, superherohype.com. Rumor: Brie Larson's Captain Marvel to have big role in Avengers 5 and 6. Speculation surrounding Avengers Doomsday points to a prominent role for Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. Rumors from scoopers suggesting that Captain Marvel will play a key part in the MCU's multiverse storyline. This follows her appearance in the Marvels and ongoing talks about her future in the MCU. Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars rumored to feature Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. According to reports, Brie Larson's character is expected to be, quote, one of the leading Avengers in both movies, as stated by Alex Perez from the Cosmic Circus. These films are set to explore the MCU's multiverse storyline, where Captain Marvel's involvement will be pivotal. The rumor was first shared by scooper My Time to Shine Hello on X, who said Captain Marvel will have a big role to play in both Avengers films. This was later supported by Perez in a Q&A session. When asked about Captain Marvel's potential appearances in other MCU projects, including Spider-Man 4, Perez said, quote, I wouldn't be surprised if she showed up in Spider-Man 4. However, he added that, quote, your best bet for the next appearance will be in Avengers Doomsday, where she'll be one of the main characters. Captain Marvel is confirmed to appear in Avengers Doomsday despite the mixed reception of the Marvels. Scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026, Doomsday is a significant film in Phase 6 of the MCU. It will follow Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Fantastic Four First Steps. The film will introduce Doctor Doom, portrayed by Robert Downey Jr., as the central character. Doctor Strange and the Fantastic Four will also appear along with other major MCU heroes. Directed by the Russo brothers, Avengers Doomsday will explore the MCU's multiverse storyline. Captain Marvel will have a significant role in the narrative. Okay, so I wonder, are they doing this maybe because they've already got Brie Larson like under contract for another movie, and so it's like, well, we're paying her this money, so we might as well put her in there. Or is this a conscious decision to, hey, let's stick with her and let's double down on Captain Marvel? Maybe a little of both. Obviously not particularly thrilled with the news. But who knows? Maybe she won't be insufferable in it this time. We'll have to wait and see. And speaking of Captain Marvel, here's another Marvel story. And Adega says, high hopes there. Yeah, well, I mean, we can only hope, right? Whew. All right, so this is from Bounding Into Comics. New report reveals Marvel Studios lost $300 million on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and The Marvels. If there's one thing that modern Hollywood is great at, it's losing millions of dollars on films you didn't want to watch. And perhaps no studio in recent years has been more skilled in doing so than Disney. I don't know. Warner Brothers is doing a pretty good job. If failing upwards was a competition, Disney would be the pound for pound number one ranked in the world. 2023 was a rough year for the Disney-backed Marvel Studios creatively, financially, and even legally. When the year began, Marvel had planned for anchor Jonathan Majors to be the villainous phase of villainous face of the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with his role as the time-traveling Kang the Conqueror set to start with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and at least last to the next Avengers movie, then titled Avengers Kang Dynasty. Yeah, remember when the next Avengers movie was Kang Dynasty? Good times. Several months and a nasty legal battle later, not only was Majors out as Kang, but Disney had also wound up losing millions on two of these Phase 6 films, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and the Marvels, aka Captain Marvel 2. More specifically, per Disney's financial statements from 2023, as obtained and relayed by Forbes, the respective box office failures of both films resulted in a roughly $296.4 million loss for the House of Mouse. Released in February 2023, Quantumania was a major disappointment as the film was set up to bring in Majors Kang as the next Thanos level Marvel villain. However, the selling point did little to bring in viewers who instead just didn't bother to see Kang's reveal on the big screen. As a result, the film only drew in 476 million worldwide against a production budget of somewhere between 280 and 320 million dollars. Give me a moment here. I'm going to take a drink of water right quick. Okay. Several months later, Brie Larson made her post Shang-Chi MCU return in The Marvels, wherein Larson's Captain Marvel joined Iman Vellani's Ms. Marvel and Teyonah Parris' Monica Rambeau to form a trio of spacefaring heroes. But rather than the smash TV movie crossover hit Disney execs thought it would be, the film ultimately turned out to be the franchise's biggest disaster, drawing in just $206.1 million on a production budget that is said to have surpassed $270 million. Ouch. As a result, the film has gone down in history as not just the lowest grossing film of the MCU thus far and one of the few MCU films not to break even in its theatrical run. According to Forbes, as both movies went on to gross 682 million worldwide. After the studio split the box office with the theaters, Marvel Studios only earned about 341 million from both movies, leaving them with a combined loss of almost 300 million. When you account for the marketing budget for both of these movies, which in Hollywood is generally calculated as being at least equal to that of the respective film's production budget, Disney sunk over $1 billion into Quantumania and the Marvels, only to recoup back roughly 35%. This loss, as well as the overall failure of the MCU's Phase 5, was so great that it prompted Marvel Studios not just scrap their plans for Kang altogether, but also bring back both the Russo brothers and Robert Downey Jr. for Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. Admittedly, 2024 has been a much better ride for the MCU, with Deadpool and Wolverine having earned 1.3 billion worldwide, the largest box office pool for a rated R movie of all time. While the short-term victory looks good for Disney's quarterly statements, the question remains if Marvel can turn the ship around completely in 2025. Yeah, because I mean, let's face it, that is basically a Fox movie. Really, it's not really an MCU movie. Next up for Marvel is the troubled Captain America Brave New World, which has already been delayed by 2 years and was reshot almost entirely due to failed test screenings for the film. Its estimated budget currently sits at 350 to 375 million. Holy crap. Meaning that the film will have to be a monster worldwide hit for the mouse to even begin thinking of sniffing a profit. The studio is also banking on the success of their villain team up film Thunderbolts, which is set for a release in May. Serving as a showcase for C-list Marvel characters such as Winter Soldier and Yelena Belova, Thunderbolts will serve as the final film of Phase 5 before the franchise shifts toward new Avengers and Fantastic Four movies in 2026. Okay, is that it? Yeah, I guess that's it. So, yeah, I don't expect Thunderbolts to be a big hit at all. In fact, if Captain America 4 is a disaster, which it looks like it might be, I think that could really, really hurt Thunderbolts and really just leave people not interested. Because let's face it, it's not; these aren't characters that people really care a lot about. I mean, the only characters on the Thunderbolts I'm interested in at all would probably be U.S. Agent and Bucky, I guess. The rest, I don't really care. Um, Red Guardian, he's annoying, he's stupid. Helena, whatever, who cares? Um, and the Ghost. Yeah, I mean, we're all looking forward to the Ghost, right? Okay. All right, couple more. Where am I at on time? 55. Wow, already. Um, Dega says if failure had a smell, it would be mouse droppings. Okay. All right, and actually, I got a couple of stories related to Spider-Man 4. So let me bring those up here. And I don't know, that might be it. Okay, this is from comicbookmovie.com. Spider-Man 4 rumored to feature a huge return along with 2 new villains. Possible spoilers. It sounds like Tom. Oh, well, let me skip that. Okay. Spider-Man 4, which recently enlisted Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings director Destin Daniel Cretton to helm, is scheduled to begin filming next year. And while official plot details have yet to be disclosed, the rumors have really begun to pick up steam over the past few weeks. The latest post from My Time to Shine Hello claims that the movie will introduce 2 new villains. Tom Holland's friendly neighborhood wall crawler will also have to contend with an old foe. According to the reliable scooper, Michael Keaton will return as the Vulture. Fans wondered if they'd ever see Adrian Toomes again after his much maligned cameo in Morbius's post-credit scene, but Keaton has expressed interest in revisiting the character. Is there a chance Vulture could turn out to be an ally of Spider-Man following the events of Homecoming's Stinger? My Time to Shine Hello also says that casting is underway for a new group of classmates for Peter, and once again mentions that a second female lead is being sought. There's a lot of speculation that it could be the Black Cat. Who could these new villains be? Another recent rumor claimed that Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom will appear, so he might count as one. We have also heard that the movie will introduce a bad guy who hasn't featured in any previous live-action Spider-Man movie. So My Time to Shine Hello posted this on X. I hear Zendaya will return for Spider-Man 4. She will film from June until August, then move to film Dune 3. The movie will also have a second female lead. It is unclear who she is. They are casting a new group of classmates for Peter and 2 new villains. Previous rumors have claimed that Sony's Tom Rothman and Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige have had some disagreements when it comes to the story of Spider-Man 4, with the latter hoping to scale the multiverse stuff way back for a smaller adventure. Interesting. Latter. So that would be Feige then, right? He's the latter, hoping to scale the multiverse stuff back for a smaller adventure. Could it be that Marvel Studios is becoming budget conscious and kind of reluctant to spend big? I wonder why that could be. Rothman, meanwhile, is said to want to capitalize on No Way Home's success by bringing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield back as their respective takes on Peter Parker. More recently, we heard that both studios have settled on a mostly grounded story with some multiversal elements, though the movie is still being described as a quote, Avengers level event. There are also rumors. Well, I don't know how you're going to do an Avengers level event and also have it be a scaled down, smaller adventure. There are also rumors that Spider-Man 4 will see Parker join forces with Venom to battle Null, who will be introduced in Venom: The Last Dance. And if I remember correctly, because I haven't read the stories, but Null is supposed to be like the god of these alien symbiotes or something like that. Which I don't know why, because he's like a humanoid character. It's like, why would a humanoid character have a god that is, you know, or I don't know. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Tom Holland will, of course, be back as the MCU Spidey alongside Zendaya as MJ, though Deadline's report of Cretton taking the gig noted that their deals have yet to officially close. Holland is believed to be growing wary of playing the iconic hero, so this could be his final solo outing as the wall crawler, though he will most certainly play a part in one or both of the upcoming Avengers films. We have the best in the business working toward whatever the story might be, the actor said in a recent interview. But until we've cracked it, we have a legacy to protect. The third movie was so special in so many ways that we need to make sure we do the right thing. No Way Home scribes Chris McKenna and Eric Summers are writing the script. Okay, well that gives me hope because Spider-Man No Way Home was, was actually pretty good. Pretty good, pretty well written, I thought, for the most part. But it would seem to me, if you're gonna, because the movie seemed to be setting him up to move on from MJ and, like they said, bring in a new cast of people around him. So then to bring Zendaya back, I don't know, it seems kind of counterproductive or kind of, I don't know. Okay, but that's not the only rumor surrounding Spider-Man 4. When I'm right at an hour. Okay. Okay, so this is also from comicbookmovie.com. Rumor Robert Downey Jr. will reunite with Tom Holland as Doctor Doom in Spider Man 4. The only official word on Spider Man 4 is that it's being directed by Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings helmer Destin Daniel Cretton. Beyond that, all we really have to go on are rumors. Initially, we were told that the plans were for a street level adventure pitting Spider Man and Daredevil against New York City's new mayor, Wilson Fisk. Last year's strikes changed things, though, and the movie now finds itself sandwiched between Daredevil Born Again seasons 1 and 2 and Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. It seemingly made more sense to acquiesce to Sony's demands for another multiversal adventure by setting Spider-Man 4 between those Avengers movies. That likely means the action will be set on Battleworld or whatever we're left with after Doomsday. Recently, we've heard that Spider-Man will reunite with his multiversal buddies, the amazing and friendly neighborhood Spider-Men, and potentially even team with Venom to battle the King in Black, Null. According to Scooper at My Time to Shine Hello's latest scoop, I can reveal that Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom will have a role in Spider-Man 4. It looks like we can add Doom to the mix, too. If Avengers Doomsday does end with an incursion, then Victor Von Doom will likely be left to rule over whatever is left. Well, that's poorly written. And could task Peter Parker with stopping Null. For Sony, it could be worth paying Downey whatever he wants to appear, as they no doubt remember his impact on Spider-Man Homecoming in 2017. As for Marvel Studios Spider-Man 4, rumored to be titled Spider-Man King in Black, it becomes a convenient way to bridge the gap between the next two Avengers movies. Okay. Um, we'll see, but even if that street level story has been postponed, it's hard not to be excited by the way this movie is starting to take shape. Earlier this month, Andrew Garfield admitted he was, quote, left dangling when The Amazing Spider Man 3 was shelved and said his MCU debut, quote, was really healing for me. As for whether he'd be open to reprising the role again, he revealed, for sure, I would 100% come back if it was the right thing, if it's additive to the culture, if there's a great concept or something that hasn't been done before that's unique and odd and exciting and that you can sink your teeth into. Garfield added, I love that character and it brings joy. If part of what I bring is joy, then I'm joyful in return. Okay. Spider-Man 4 is starting to sound like that Superman movie. It's like they're putting everybody in it. Okay. All right. I've got a couple more stories here, but I'll just do this one and then call it a night here. What am I at? 105, basically. Okay. And again, this is from comicbookmovie.com. Let me bring this up. All right. Major studios are assembling superfan focus groups in an attempt to combat online backlash. Toxic fandom has become an increasingly major issue over the past few years, with more and more people taking to social media to lash out at anything they perceive to be a problem with a particular franchise or movie series they've invested in. Being passionate is one thing, but lines tend to be crossed, and in addition to relatively harmless, though we're sure studio execs would disagree, practices such as review bombing, actor directors are often targeted for sexist, homophobic abuse. There's a general perception that studios don't really pay much attention to this sort of backlash, but this is not the case, according to a new report from Variety. Quote, it comes with the territory, but it's gotten incredibly loud in the last couple of years, says a veteran marketing executive at a major studio. People are just out for blood regardless. They think the purity of the first version will never be replaced, or you've done something to upset the canon of a beloved franchise, and they're going to take you down for doing so, unquote. It seems major Hollywood studios, none are named, but we're going to go ahead and assume Lucasfilm is one of them. Yeah, probably. Are attempting to combat this negativity by putting superfan focus groups together to assess possible marketing materials for a major franchise project. Quote, they're very vocal, says the exec. They will just tell us. If you do that, fans are going to retaliate. If it's early enough and the movie isn't finished yet, we can make those kinds of changes. Apparently, like changing the race or gender of a character or making them gay or something like that abruptly, maybe. Apparently, studios will also put their talent through a social media boot camp, and if they feel that a character is intentionally challenging a franchise's status quo, they will even take over their social media accounts entirely. Security firms have also been known to scrub talent information from the internet to protect them from doxing. Taking additional steps to protect your actors from online abuse is admirable, but making major changes to your projects based on how a focus group believes a minority of fans will react does not sound like a very good idea. There's always going to be a certain amount of negativity associated with every major franchise. You're never going to please everyone, so why not trust the creatives you've hired to work on these projects while also having a basic knowledge of the lore and source material to avoid making any unnecessary changes in the first place? Okay. Yeah, so I mean, it seems to me, like you said, I think that this bringing in these fan groups, because when I hear super fan like group, I think of, remember when they in the run up to Rings of Power, they had those quote unquote super fans who were brought in to basically hype the movie, and I mean it was laughable. Um, but the thing is, if they're gonna have, because I suspect what's gonna happen is they're gonna have these fan groups give guidance on the projects, but they're only going to bring in fans who are going to support what they're doing. They're not really going to bring in fans that are going to challenge them or question them or dispute what they're doing and say, no, that's a bad idea. No, that's a bad idea. No, making a streaming show about Green Lantern solving a murder in Wyoming isn't gonna. That's not a good idea. Ah, Jesus. And they're not. They're. I don't know. My guess is they're just not really going to listen anyway. But on top of that, I suspect what they'll do is they'll use these fan groups basically as kind of, basically kind of to help push back against the fan negativity online. And if they do that, that's just going to create more acrimony and more anger and make people even less inclined to want to see their stuff. But, what do I know? Okay, I think that'll be it for tonight. I want to thank everyone who tuned in during the stream and those who will watch on a rewatch. Please do like this stream before you leave. And please do sub to my channel if you would. And Odega says, fan groups are therapy for the writer's ego. Maybe. I mean, I would say it's less for the writer's ego and more for the producers, honestly. But you know that could be that too. The writer, the director, etc. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to this if I thought they were going to get fans who actually know the stuff and would want to basically to make the kind of stuff that I think most fans would want to see. But that's not what they're going to do. They're going to get fans like those Lord of the Rings fans in quote, who are just going to, thumbs up and rubber stamp all the, changes they make to characters. Um, so what was I saying? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to have uh, drill with my National Guard unit next weekend. So there will be no stream next Sunday. So I'll be back with this in 2 weeks. I will have a stream, a Trek Talk stream. Trek Talk's going to return after a 2-week layoff. So this Tuesday, I'll be taking a look at the original series episode, This Side of Paradise. Although I probably will not have a Trek Talk the following Tuesday either. I'll probably miss it that next week. So anyway, that'll be it for tonight. And good night, Adega, sir. Thank you as always for showing up. Do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a good night. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.